answer here, which I don't always give. Writing a book is a commercial enterprise, right? So you have to pick something that you think is going to sell. Obviously, LeBron and the Lakers are that. So I always want to lead off with that because I don't want to make it seem like I'm just, here for the art of it. That being said, you have to be willing to dive in. I spent 3 years on this, right? So you got to be willing to work on this. And it just felt like I love covering the behind the scenes stuff and sort of unpacking.
He's Greg Maddux at the end of his career. Every night he doesn't have his best stuff, but he has enough to win. And you just got to, I'm his catcher. I've figured out, how to call the pitches. Sometimes he tells me to F off.
Lakers owner demands LeBron be removed. Cameras catch his shocking behavior. The unthinkable is on the table. In the hallowed halls of the Lakers facility, a line has been crossed so definitively that the once unshakable partnership between franchise and king is now hanging by a thread. An explosive private demand from the very top has leaked, and it's not about a trade request, it's about removal. And it all stems from a single camera-caught moment of behavior so shocking it has rewritten the rules of engagement between LeBron James and the team he was supposed to save. It was a late-season game, the kind where playoff seeding is all but locked in and the atmosphere should be one of preparation, not desperation. The Lakers were down by a significant margin in the fourth quarter, a frustrating but not catastrophic situation for a team in their position. As the final timeout was called, the broadcast cameras, as they always do, panned to the Lakers' huddle. What they captured in the next 10 seconds wasn't a coach drawing up a play. It wasn't a teammate giving an inspirational speech. It was a silent, devastating breakdown of the chain of command. LeBron James was seated on the bench, a towel draped over his head. Head coach Darvin Ham was kneeling, diagramming a defensive adjustment on his clipboard, speaking intently. LeBron did not look at the board. He did not look at Ham. He stared straight ahead, through his coach, with an expression of profound, icy disengagement. It wasn't anger. It was something far worse, dismissive contempt. As Ham finished talking and the team broke the huddle, LeBron remained seated for a full 3 seconds after every other player had stood up, a deliberate, public pause that screamed his dissent. He then slowly rose, threw his towel to the ground with a force that was unmistakable, and walked back onto the court without a single word or glance toward his head coach. The announcers stumbled over their words, quickly trying to move on, but the internet does not move on. The clip, labeled "LeBron checks out on Ham," went viral instantly. Initially, it was brushed off as a veteran's frustration in a lost game, but within the Lakers organization, sources say the reaction was one of cold fury. This wasn't a private film session disagreement. This was a televised, blatant act of insubordination that undermined the head coach in the most public way possible. For an organization built on a culture of respect, at least publicly, it was a direct challenge not just to Ham's authority, but to the authority of the front office that hired him. The incident became the tipping point, the tangible evidence for a building narrative that LeBron James was no longer a partner, but a separate, unchecked power. And it was a piece of footage that would land on the desk of the one person with the power to do something about it.
But I imagine you'd want him to finish in a Laker uniform, right? That would be your choice.
That would be my choice, and he knows that's how I feel. Mm-hmm. But again, it's his story to tell, not mine. And so he has to decide how everything's going to go. And that's very important to allow him. He's earned that right to write his own story, his own ending.
You got to hear about SNL 50.
Yes!
Greatest weekend of my life.
Really?
My goal is just to see Tracy Morgan with my wife and take a picture of my wife and Tracy Morgan. Mm-hmm. So my wife meets Tracy Morgan. I kiss Tracy on the cheek.
The fallout from the viral clip was a public relations nightmare, but the true earthquake happened behind closed doors. According to multiple high-level sources within the Lakers organization, a mandatory, high-stakes meeting was convened in the executive suite just 48 hours after the game. In attendance were majority owner Jeannie Buss, governor and director of the board Joey Buss, basketball operations chief Rob Pelinka, and a select few trusted senior advisors. The sole topic: the conduct of LeBron James and the existential threat it posed to the franchise's operational integrity. Insiders described the meeting as tense, somber, and ultimately decisive. Jeannie Buss, who has long positioned herself as a steward of her father's legacy and a protector of the Lakers family, was reportedly devastated and furious. The argument presented to her, primarily by the non-basketball business executives in the room, was stark. LeBron's public act of defiance was not an isolated incident, but the visible symptom of a deeper disease. It signaled to every player, coach, and future free agent that the head coach was not the ultimate authority, and by extension, neither was the front office. It created a culture of fear and uncertainty where no one knew who was really in charge. This, they argued, was a fatal environment for attracting and developing talent in the long term. It was in this context that the unthinkable was uttered. Jeannie Buss, faced with the prospect of her franchise's culture being permanently hollowed out, is said to have made a decisive, private declaration. According to a source with direct knowledge of the meeting, her words were, "This cannot stand. If this level of disrespect for the institution continues, we will have to pursue a removal of the problem. I want options explored." The key phrase, repeated by several sources, was removal of the problem. While not a direct, final order to trade LeBron James, it was a seismic shift in posture. It was the owner putting the ultimate sanction, the end of the LeBron James era in Los Angeles, on the table as a real, actionable possibility, not a fantasy talking point. It was a demand for the front office to begin contingency planning for a future they had sworn would not arrive for years. This private demand, the owner's breaking point, was the organization's most guarded secret, until it leaked.
I just got off the call with a couple of people, and a couple of people told me, one person told me that it was the length of the contract to Tyronn Lue, along with them trying to pick some of his staff that turned him off. He was insulted by that notion, so that had a lot to do with it. And I had another person telling me, hey, listen, nothing is out of bounds right now. We don't know what the hell is going on in Los Angeles. You've got folks.
If I'm smarter than y'all, on that I don't have to work as hard. It's that simple for him.
The leak of Jeannie Buss's private directive did not come in the form of a screaming headline. It began as a low hum, a series of carefully worded, anonymously sourced reports from the most connected NBA insiders. Phrases like, "The Lakers are deeply alarmed," and "ownership has reached a new level of frustration" began to appear. Then came the more direct, breathtaking language. The sustainability of the partnership is under review, and all options, including a dramatic reshuffle, are now being discussed at the highest levels. For those who speak the language of NBA front office leaks, this was not speculation. This was a controlled detonation, a message being sent. The purpose of such a leak is always multifaceted. First, it is a shock to the system, a public, brutal warning shot to LeBron James and his camp, Rich Paul's Clutch Sports, that their perceived impunity has limits. It signals that the owner's patience, often seen as infinite, has expired. Second, it is a test of the waters. By letting the phrase removal exist in the ecosystem, the Lakers can gauge the reaction of their fan base, the media, and most importantly, other teams. What would the trade market look like? What is the appetite for this kind of epic shifting move? The leak itself becomes a strategic tool. Inside the Lakers facility, the atmosphere reportedly shifted overnight, from tense to toxic. The wall of unified support crumbled. Players, caught between loyalty to their legendary teammate and the reality of the organization that signs their checks, retreated into silence. Coach Darvin Ham, already in an untenable position, was now leading a team where the owner had essentially declared war on its best player. How does any coach command respect in that scenario? The basketball operations staff, led by Rob Pelinka, were now tasked with an impossible duality: publicly support the competitive goal of winning with LeBron, while privately exploring the catastrophic scenario of moving on from him. The franchise was now operating in a state of open secret, where everyone knew the ultimate sanction was on the table, but no one could speak of it. The trust that binds any successful team had evaporated, replaced by a cold corporate calculus and the chilling understanding that the king and the kingdom were now in a silent, high-stakes game of chicken.
We focused a lot on the conditioning part of it, but stylistically, they also felt that there was a ceiling to the way he plays. And that's why you heard Nico Harrison, who is obviously no longer employed, saying defense wins championships. And he kept stressing that because that was the weakness.
No, I'm not waiting on Bryce. No, I don't know what his timeline is.
With the removal directive now a specter haunting every conversation, the Lakers front office was forced into a brutal and unenviable calculus. Exploring the trade of LeBron James isn't like any other transaction. This is a move that defines a decade, that risks alienating a global fan base, and that requires a return so monumental it justifies the unthinkable. Insider reports suggest the internal exploration is less about finding a better basketball deal, an almost impossible task, and more about assessing the cost of cultural reclamation. The financial considerations are dizzying. LeBron's contract, his no-trade clause, and the sheer magnitude of his $50 million plus annual salary mean only a handful of teams could even theoretically structure a deal. But beyond the cap sheets lies the true calculation. What is the price of taking back control of your own franchise? The Lakers would not be seeking equal basketball value. They would be seeking a package of young talent, a mountain of draft equity, think 5 or more first-round picks, and the immediate financial flexibility to build anew. They would be trading the present and the icon for the keys to their own future. It is a bet that they can survive the short-term tsunami of backlash to rebuild a sustainable, coach-centric culture from the ground up, a culture they believe is impossible with a figure as powerful as LeBron residing within it. This calculus exposes the core, painful conflict. Jeannie Buss and the basketball traditionalists see the franchise as a perpetual entity, an institution that must outlast any single player, no matter how great. The active removal is a sacrificial, surgical cut to save the patient's long-term health. LeBron's camp, and much of the modern NBA, views this as an archaic notion. In their view, the player is the institution, the global brand, the revenue, the relevance. It flows from him. To remove him is to willingly choose irrelevance, to become the Detroit Pistons or the Charlotte Hornets by choice. The Lakers' exploration isn't just a trade analysis. It's a philosophical referendum on what a franchise is in the year 2025. Is it a legacy to be stewarded, or is it a platform to be leveraged by transcendent talent? The shocking behavior wasn't just a disrespectful moment, it was the catalyst forcing this ugly, fundamental question into the light.
Bronny versus Cooper Flag last night. Did you have any big picture takeaways from last night's game?
I really like Cooper Flag's game. Obviously, 5 for 21, didn't shoot the ball the way that he wanted to. He called it one of the worst games of his career. And I don't know if I'd agree with, like, I thought he had a pretty good game outside of the shooting. And he's got to figure out, like,
I'm 41 years old. Of course, there's always every back-to-back.
Didn't look like it.
Every back-to-back for the rest of the season is TBD. I am 41. I got the most minutes in NBA history.
In the wake of the leaked directive, the basketball world held its breath, waiting for the protagonist to speak. LeBron James's response was, once again, a masterclass in powerful silence. No tweets, no cryptic Instagram posts, no pointed comments to the press pool. Instead, he let his actions do the talking. At the very next practice, multiple team sources reported a striking scene. LeBron was the first on the floor, the last to leave, running drills with an intensity that was described as terrifying. He was demonstratively engaged in huddles, clapping, encouraging teammates, and, notably, following Coach Ham's instructions to the letter. It was a performance of perfect, professional compliance. A clear, unspoken message. You want to question my commitment? Here it is. You want to talk about removal? Try it. This calculated professionalism was far more threatening than any outburst. It robbed the Lakers of a subsequent justifying incident. It made the leaked removal talk seem reactive and rash. LeBron's camp, primarily through the strategic whispers of his agent Rich Paul, began their own counter-campaign. The narrative shifted subtly in friendly media outlets. This was about a frustrated competitor, not a rogue insubordinate. That the shocking behavior was a symptom of a flawed roster construction and inconsistent coaching, not the cause of the problem. They painted the Lakers front office as panicked, willing to scapegoat the greatest player of all time for their own failures. The schism was now complete. Two competing, powerful narratives battling for public and, more importantly, for league-wide perception. The fan base fractured into civil war. One side, the institution-first crowd, backed Jeannie Buss, arguing no player is bigger than the Lakers and that LeBron's disrespect could not be tolerated. The other side, the LeBron is the franchise crowd, saw the move as a historic blunder, a betrayal of the player who delivered a championship and global relevance. Social media became a battleground of traded insults and means, but the underlying sadness was palpable. This was no longer fun. This was the painful public unraveling of a dream partnership, exposing the cold, hard power dynamics that had always simmered beneath the surface of the Hollywood smiles and championship parades.
Right now, as we sit here today, it feels like LeBron James is going to get traded. I have never felt this way in my entire basketball fan life or media career, that he was going to get traded. All signs are pointing towards this possibly happening. And I know every NBA insider is going to say, you're ridiculous, this is not going to happen. And I'm sure they're probably right and I'm probably wrong. But if I didn't know...
41 years old, though, just the athleticism that he's still able to show. Does he do things that kind of make you marvel?
Oh, for sure. I mean, it's just insane. Like, probably me at 41, I'll be limping around, so...
We have now arrived at the point of no return. The demand has been made. The secret is out. The battle lines are drawn. There is no deleting the footage of LeBron's dismissive glance, and there is no unhearing the owner's private declaration that his presence has become a problem requiring removal. This is no longer a dispute that can be smoothed over with a handshake and a joint press conference. A fundamental line of respect and operational control has been crossed, and the bridge behind it has been burned. The Lakers organization now faces an impossible choice with no neutral outcome. If they follow through and orchestrate a trade of LeBron James, they will endure a firestorm of historic proportions. They will be vilified, called incompetent, and will likely plunge into basketball irrelevance for years. But they will have reasserted, in the most dramatic way imaginable, that the institution of the Lakers is supreme. They will own their future, for better or worse. If they back down, if the leaks were merely a warning shot and they retain LeBron, they have shown their ultimate hand and revealed their limit. LeBron's power within the franchise becomes absolute, unchallengeable. The head coach becomes a permanent puppet, and the front office becomes a service agency for the king. The concept of a unified Lakers culture is dead. This saga, triggered by a few seconds of shocking behavior, has revealed the brutal, modern truth of superstar partnerships. They are not marriages. They are corporate mergers with an expiration date, governed by power, not sentiment. The cameras caught more than a moment of frustration. They caught the exact instant a partnership of convenience shattered under the weight of its own unsustainably lopsided power balance. The owner demanded control. The king demonstrated he never lost it. And now the entire basketball world watches, waiting to see which version of the Lakers will survive the coming war, the one that belongs to the Buss family, or the one that exists for now as the glittering satellite of the LeBron James empire. So what is the verdict? Was LeBron's on-court behavior a fireable offense for a leader of his stature, or simply the understandable frustration of a competitor? Was Jeannie Buss right to draw the ultimate line in the sand to save her franchise's soul? Or has she made a catastrophic miscalculation that will define her legacy as the owner who lost LeBron James? This is about more than a trade rumor. This is a power struggle for the heart of the NBA's most iconic franchise. Can the institution survive the individual, or has the individual simply become too big to be contained by any institution? The stage is set, the decision looms. Who wins? Sound off in the comments below. For the deepest, most compelling breakdowns of the stories that shake the NBA, make sure to subscribe and hit the bell. We don't just follow the drama, we explain the war behind it.